Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to this webinar where we're going to explore together the energy of 2023. It's a very, very different energy from last year. And so we're going to do this in a slightly different way from how I did a similar kind of webinar last year, because the energy really demands it. And so it's going to be a more collaborative effort rather than just me pronouncing on what I sense is the energy of the year. I'm going to invite you to be very present in that with me so that you're very directly receiving the information that is relevant to you. It feels in one way like the energy that we've been waiting for a long time, but it's easy when you have that kind of energy to actually miss the point of it. And so it's important when we have energy that potentially is helpful to things that we're doing to be more awake and more alert and less in the assumption that I've got everything and everything's going to work for me than ever before. So when the energy is smooth for us, it takes more of us, more consciousness than at any other time. So I think this is a year that is going to call for us to be at our best. I could say that every year, but it's a bit of a different way when the energy is the way that it is. So what I'd like to do, just give me one moment. There we go. Sorry, my screens are popping in different ways, and I think it's better to get those ones out of the way. I thought I had them all sorted. There we go. What I'd like to do is start off with a short activation for all of us to connect with the energy of the year, because this is an energy we've never experienced before. What we can touch into now is simply that. It's what we can touch into now. What's actually going to happen remains clearly until it happens, and everything happens differently for every person. But there is a skill in being able to tap into an energy like this that we all have access to. And so that's what we're going to start by doing. So I invite you to close your eyes and breathe into your lower belly. And become very centered and present in this moment. So let go of all the things that might bother your mind, or that you might be dealing with at the moment, or you've been dealing with already today. So that you can make the most of this significant moment of your life, which is the present moment. And let's invite the energy of 2023 to be present with each of us. So that we can sense into what's valuable for you to receive. What's valuable for you to respond to. What's valuable for us as a group to receive. And for all the people who will watch this recording later. What's valuable to be received for all of us, for all of humanity. In our many, many different ways of living and being and thinking and feeling. And what's valuable for us to receive as the inhabitants and members, if you like, or particles of Earth. Our temporary home. We are truly on the edge of the unknown. Whilst that is always the case, we've grown up in an era where we had and developed many protocols and frameworks and processes that have been shared very widely to teach us how to do life. And increasingly, we're finding that the old processes and protocols and frameworks are not working very well for us. And they're working, in fact, so badly that we can often feel at a loss because what we thought we knew doesn't serve us anymore. It doesn't get us anywhere near where we felt that we wanted to be. And we are also finding that when we get to where we thought we wanted to be, it isn't really what we wanted to be, because the dreams of our parents are not the dreams of us. And the dreams of us have been very strongly conditioned a lot of the time by external media of all kinds. And we're in a time now where we're freeing ourselves of the power and the influence of the external media to be able to go inside, both as individuals and as groups and as collectives, and find out what's true at a deeper level than what we have generally been used to. And every single person here will be on a different place in that exploration. But one thing that I can say for sure for this year is that whatever you think you know, whatever you feel is the strong ground that comes from your past, that is the place where humility, openness, curiosity, willingness to be in the unknown is going to stand you in very, very good stead. Now, feel free to open your eyes if you prefer to now, and be aware that you may receive information during this session just as much as I am. And at the end, I will create a little space where at least a few people can share if there's something really significant that you've experienced that's different, then we can at least get a taste of that. And this is something that you might then continue after the session. The energy of last year was extremely dynamic, and dynamic in a way that was often very uncomfortable. It was an energy that was powerful. I made a recording last year and I called it the astoundingly dynamic energy of 2022, because really that was a very good description. It was powerful in a way that was often surprising, and where things could happen on multiple layers at the same time. And I experienced that on many occasions, and I know many other people did. It would probably not be obvious unless you were ready and tuned in for that, because it was also very easy to pass through last year, feeling the struggle, watching what was going on in the world and getting caught up in that, which wasn't terribly helpful. This year, it's even less helpful. It's so important in the energy that we're in that we are looking forwards, and that we are aware that we are in a very creative universe, and that we influence what we experience. Something I've said many times before, the energy of what we're experiencing now was conceived in the past. So trying to change what's happening now is a very frustrating experience because it was already formed and shaped, often decades ago. What we can do in the present is shape and influence what's going to happen in the future. And if we do that in a way that feels really good for us, the beauty of it is we feel really good now, whatever's going on in the world. So this kind of creativity, which is the simple, natural creativity of being human, of being alive, of being part of this universe, is an important energy for us this year. It's already feeling smoother. I don't necessarily mean that world events are smoother. I'm meaning that the sense, the feeling of the energy is smoother. It's less rocky, it's less surprising, it's easier to handle. It doesn't have us so much on edge, especially if you can really tune into it. You can tune into that. Ah, yes, this feels like a gentler year. And that's backed up by the Chinese system, which says that the year, which starts on the 4th of February, the Chinese year of the rabbit is soft and fluffy, and it's a much smoother kind of energy from that monkey year that we had last year. So to tune into that smoothness actually helps to calm down the rather jangled nerves that many people developed last year. The quicker we can do that, the more we can benefit from the energy of this year, rather than fighting it because we still think we're in an old place. And when we let go of fighting it, we're actually able to move with it and experience the value of it, rather than expecting it to be something different from what it is. It's a much more prosperous year. Some people are already noticing that. Some of that comes with the smoothness. It's a year where things that maybe you were really trying to get to happen last year and couldn't, can happen much more easily. So that means the energy of manifestation and of materialization is smoother for us. And if we can put ourselves in the right position at an internal level to be able to go smoothly with that energy, we can benefit from it very directly. So when I keep using this word smooth, what it's bringing to me is the sense that we've grown up on the whole in a world that fights the prevailing energy, is always in this fight modality. We've got very used to polarization. We've got very used to being very individual in our expression. We've got very used to having our own opinions about things. But a smoother energy like this invites us to let go of a lot of that very individual, somewhat fight energy, that proving myself to be worthy, proving myself to be somebody, proving myself to be different from everybody else. And underneath all of that, proving myself to be better than everybody else, at least in my own tiny universe, so that I can have some sense of self and I can feel worthy and I can feel that I deserve something that I'm probably not receiving at the moment. And we're so used to that we don't really notice it. And this invitation invites us to put that down, put down the fight for yourself, not to become some kind of smooth, blended, we're all the same, we're all one, no individuality, no expression, no creativity kind of energy, but to actually find yourself, your true self that is part of this oneness, this collective, this universal energy and universal expression. You have a unique part in it, but you don't need to prove that you're special. You don't need to prove that you deserve something or that you're worthy of life. You're alive, you're here. And the more we can calm down that underlying need to prove ourselves, we're able to actually be in the world and be ourselves. And that is the ultimate proof of your being, of your contribution, of your participation in the creativity of life. and of your absolute worth, which has no price, it has no dollar value on it. It is infinite, it is sacred, it is who you are, it is your essence. That enables you to relax. It enables you to be you, to operate as you in the world, to function as you in the world, and to function very well in this rather smooth and, as I'll explain a little while, very much more collaborative energy. It also enables you to operate with all of you rather than in parts. We've probably talked for a while now about how fragmented the world has become and how linear we've been, and we divide everything up into parts, but it's such a habit that it's very easy to do that. I catch myself doing it quite often in ways that I don't really believe in, but it's just ingrained in me to chop things up into parts, to see parts, to think if I do this, then this will happen and everything will be okay. And not to remember that everything is connected with everything, and what I do influences everything else, and everyone else is also influencing me. And the way of moving with that awareness is very different from the way of moving with a scientific, rational understanding of the world that understands the chemical components and the movements and the interactions, but doesn't necessarily see the whole, or feel or sense or experience the whole at the same time. It's not that those parts are not relevant. Of course, they're relevant, they're a part of it, but very often they're actually a very small part of it. The whole is very, very big, and we have the capacity as human beings to be able to experience the parts and the whole at the same time. And that makes life into a very different experience from being locked into a part, especially a part where you can't see the way forward, you don't know what to do about things, or you feel stuck, or you feel locked into a situation that you never wanted to be in the first place. So to relax into yourself enables you to open up more of your capacity for life and your ability to sense multiple timelines, multiple storylines, multiple dimensions of life that are part of you and are also happening around and outside of you, but all of it connected. And so when you can experience it, you feel part of something, you feel your intrinsic worth, you experience the sacredness of who you are simply because that's who you are. You don't need to talk it up, you don't need to turn it into a thing, because it's already there. It was never missing. That's really an underlying inner position and way of moving with this energy. And as we find that, as we settle into that, it will become something that stabilizes in us and becomes part of our foundation for next year and the years to come. So when I talk about these kinds of things at the beginning of the year, it's always part of what the gift of this year is that becomes what we know moving on from this year. It becomes part of our strength and our foundation from this year onwards. If we fight this energy, we just lose that opportunity. We don't receive that inner knowing of this sacredness and intrinsic value of who we are that enables us to be free of the need to prove ourselves in all the silly little ways that we so often feel called to, because we recognize who we are at our essence, and that quietens down all of that noise. This is a year of greater prosperity. And what I see, what I sense, is that prosperity is coming in a way that we've been looking for, many of us, for a long time. Those of us who've been working in new systems and in new ways and in solving some of the really big problems that we have got frustrated with in our lifetime, and who have worked a lot in expanding consciousness and growing our sense of who we really are as human beings, because we weren't satisfied with the life that we were being invited to live as children and young adults. That work that has been done in carving paths for new systems to emerge has often felt very unrewarded in terms of prosperity. There are a few people who've broken through, but normally by using the rules of the old systems very, very strongly. And then there's an uncomfortable compromise that comes out in that, because if you're going to hammer your sales while doing really beautiful consciousness work, or if you're going to, these expressions they use, people say things like, oh, you become bulletproof, or there's so many things where you're going to try to apply these very, very strong, very forceful methods and processes in order to create success in work that is subtle and individual and emerging and evolving and always new and always right on the edge of the unknown, on the leading edge of life. If you try to bring those together, it's a very uncomfortable mix. I've tried, any one of us who's in business has probably tried, because that's what we have been shown, and people say it works and they promise it works. I've tried lots of things and they don't work. I still try some things sometimes because it feels necessary. And then it's like, oh, I don't like that. It doesn't feel right. How do we get this experience that fulfills who we are and at the same time enables prosperity and success, which I feel is not so much now about our individual prosperity. It has been a lot in the past, but it's actually about our collective prosperity. It's actually not that much fun just to be individually prosperous and be surrounded by people who are not and who are really struggling. And it's also not the point. Prosperity is naturally a shareable thing. The wealthier you become, the more you have to share. You can buy more, you can pay for more, you can do more with your money, which benefits other people. So there's much more of a sense now of a shared prosperity. And that's why it feels so smooth, this combination of energies, that this prosperity feels like, this is the energy that enables a more collective prosperity to emerge. And so this is the year where the foundation of that becomes laid, not in the inner workings. Many of us have been working on these things for years, maybe decades, but where that foundation begins to become the foundation of future systems in the world. So it begins to come out into the open. People's attention comes to it, strength comes to it, energy from systems that have been more powerful in the past, that are manipulative or forceful, starts to come more towards the systems that are smoother, that are aligned with life and with nature and with the essence of who we are. And so there is a gathering of energy with prosperity around new systems. This is an interesting part of the energy. What I'm seeing is that there are systems that are really underlying systems. They are the fundamentals of a life that is lived in alignment with nature, which means that all the things that happen in nature, which are not always beautiful, are a part of it. We're in less denial of the full range of our nature. We're not just trying to be beautiful, happy, some very positive, special beings. We recognize that there are all elements of behavior in nature and in human nature, and we're at peace with them to a greater extent. We can work with the aspects of ourselves that hurt other people and that are forceful and manipulative and therefore hurt us. They hurt us probably more than they hurt other people. So we're able to gradually find peace with those. And so the systems that are most supported here, as I'm seeing at the moment, are not the little projects that stick their head up. Their time will come, but we actually need to lay the ground of the underlying systems. This is like a farm that the first thing it has to do if the ground has been degraded over many years is actually build the soil. If your soil has virtually no fertility in it, and it can't retain moisture, and it can't grow anything without a massive amount of chemicals being poured into it, you have soil that has no future in it. But all over the world, there are people who are now growing soil, literally, by the farming practices and the land management practices that they use. And that soil enables good crops, and the habits of taking care of your soil enable good crops to grow for many years. So the energy of this year is really the soil growing energy rather than the crop growing energy. And that takes patience, because sometimes we want the crops, I want the food to grow as fast as possible, and I'm going to be really impatient around the soil. But life is not allowing that. One of the things that I'm experiencing very strongly now these days is that life, maybe it's the energy of this planet, the energy that is growing and evolving life on Earth, is not really giving space for things to be done in the wrong order. It feels like now it's now or never. Do things with the patience and with the quality and with the attention to detail and the attention to where you're really trying to get to, which is a fully fertile soil in a fully fertile, rich, diverse ecosystem where all of the life that's appropriate to that ecosystem can flourish. If that's the direction we're going, then we must make sure that that's the way we're growing. Let's not grow something that forces us off into a direction we didn't really want to go to just because we're in a hurry or because we need something now. Let's actually have the patience that farmers probably have also had to learn as they convert from the old chemical systems to the organic, sustainable, regenerative systems that take care of life on the land that they live on. The lessons that they learn in terms of patience and observation and listening and being led by their animals and by the plants and by the land itself and by the earth itself. It's from nature, including us, not exclude. We are a part of nature, and we're different from any other part of nature, and we're the same. We have both. Each part of nature has its unique spirit and contribution, if you like, to the whole, and that's the same for each of us and us as a species as well. When we can align with that and pay attention to life and to the quality of life, and therefore to the quality of your own life as well, then we have to listen and we have to observe and we have to act as part of it, not on it. We have to let go of the manipulative, forceful energies that we have so often practiced in our own lives as much as are happening in the wider world, and find that gentler, more natural energy that flows, that works in its own intrinsic way. And this is the foundation for prosperity of this year. So it's the growing of those systems, the commitment to the growing of those systems with deep quality that creates greater prosperity. And as in so much of my work, which for those of you who don't know me is around the energy of money, what that means is the difference between getting rich and living a rich life. So feel into the energy of those, getting rich and living a rich life, and see which is the energy of this year and moving forward, and what's the energy of the desires of the past. And let's just have a look at a moment at this expression. And look, you can replace your word, put your words in. You might not like my words, living a rich life. It happens to mean something to me because it always conjures up this very strong sense of a very whole life that's rich in so many dimensions. That rich life, does that include or exclude money resources, whatever it is you need to contribute to the greatest of your potential, to the fullest of you. Does it include those resources, which include money, of course, or does it exclude them if you live a rich life? If you get rich, you might have a lot of resources, but are you really able to live a rich life? I would say that life, we have proven, and many, many people have proven very publicly now, that getting rich and living a rich life are very different things. And that what we long for as human beings is to live a rich life, a life that is, it may be rich, as for me, in simplicity. I love the feeling of simplicity. That's part of what's a rich life for me. A rich life is not very complicated. Your rich life might be very different from my rich life and from everybody else's in this room. But it's building the soil of the rich life that is yours, emerging more strongly this year and then continuing to grow in future years. And what this means is that we are invited into a wholeness of expression. I mentioned earlier that fragmented way that we've done things. And so we pay attention, for example, to our heart because we're having heart palpitations or some kind of symptoms in our heart. And so we rush off and see the doctor or the cardiologist and do something about our heart. And then we take medications that have an effect on another part of us. So we have to take another medication that has an effect on that, and so on and so forth. And we kind of know that that's not really a great way to treat our body. But what I see is that most people do it anyway, because when push comes to shove, when it feels like, oh my goodness, I've been ignoring my heart all these years and now it's really shouting very loudly at me and saying, I don't like this, I'm finally going to pay attention. And then I'm going to resort to all the old ways, really because I didn't listen before. So learning to listen and learning to listen deeply to your own body, which is your nature, it's your soil, it's your trees and plants and water and all the other systems, learning to listen to nature and to the parts of nature, learning to listen to life deeply, learning to listen to the intangible energies that are all around us, many of them directly involved in making things happen in our life, the arrangers and our operational team in the invisible world, learning to listen to them, learning to listen to whatever source of deep spiritual enrichment is available to you or is meaningful to you. This is not, oh, I'm already really good at that. I can listen to my higher self. I listen to God. I listen to Earth. I listen to Gaia. I talk to trees. This is whatever I'm able to do already. There is an invitation now to expand that capacity. It's not always to go deeper and deeper in an ambitious way. It's more of an enriching than a kind of pushing actually to prove myself even more. It's an increasing the subtlety and the range and the scope and the capacity of listening to a wider range of information, all the time developing your ability to filter what is really high quality, nourishing and beautiful information from the information that sounds really cool, maybe feels really cool, but is not deeply nourishing. It's like the temptation, if you go into organic farming, having been a chemical farmer, to just take whatever product you can that's got an organic label on and stick it in so you can get a quick result, rather than recognizing the need to have healthy soil and healthy water and healthy air and healthy growing systems as well. And none of that happens overnight, however much you like. Results can happen overnight. All kinds of things can happen overnight. And plants can produce fruit and crops very quickly, some of them. But still, we have to pay attention to the foundation all the time. So it's important to sense this now, because it makes markers in your energy that you will come back to time and time again during the year, like little post-it notes that are stuck on your wall that remind you that the energy of this requires a certain kind of wholeness and alignment with life, and growing this foundation of prosperity, the underlying systems of prosperity, not just the spikes of achievement. The spikes of achievement are really they pop up all over the place. Many of those will come in future years. But what I see at the moment is that the real growth will come, first of all, in the underlying systems. And the better we do that, the better the future will be. This is the moment not to compromise on values, because the change that is happening is a change that is all about values. It's about us recognizing what we value most in our heart, in our soul, in the depths of our being, and standing for those, and not allowing our values to be chopped down by everybody who asks something of us, not allowing ourselves to lose our deeply held values just because we want to please other people, not allowing our values to be compromised because there's a result that we can see in front of us and we think, well, if I get that quick win, then everything else will somehow work better. It won't. That one of the things that I'm seeing, and I think there's going to be enormous temptation around this, is that what is actually going to work and work in the long term and provide deep satisfaction to you and to whatever you are creating or contributing in the world, and to your community, which includes your family, of course, and therefore to all of us, is where we grow systems that pay attention to the wholeness. So instead of feeling holes and gaps inside you, instead of feeling that you're unable to hold yourself up to create what you want, you develop a wholeness inside you, which is a really rich feeling. It's a feeling of a kind of beautiful, subtle fullness and aliveness, which is not exciting and is not needing a certain kind of overstimulation to be able to be felt. It's actually your lived realities, this fullness that is natural and alive and rich and nourishing to all of your being. And if we apply that in business or in our activities, whatever they happen to be, it means we need to look for that wholeness and allow that to be expressed. Look for that all the time. I was in a conversation a couple of days ago, and it became really clear to me that if you have tended to be one of those people who will hold back, you'll see things that need attention paid to them, but you hold back because other people talk more, or other people seem to have all the ideas, or other people are very busy, and then you just hold back your perception or your contribution or your piece of the puzzle, you're actually holding back the wholeness and preventing this whole beautiful fertile soil to be developed. You're saying, it's okay, we'll make some compromises around the edge and nobody will really notice, and I think it'll be okay in the future. This is not a call to some kind of perfection. If you work with nature, including human nature, you very quickly realize that perfection is absolutely not what it's about, and that we need tremendous patience and tolerance and understanding of all the ways in which we lose it and make mistakes and behave badly and treat ourselves badly and treat other people badly, sometimes really unconsciously, sometimes we could say almost consciously. Our worst sides can come out in all of this, and one of the things that we're going to learn a lot more about is how to be patient with that, how to forgive each other, how to have compassion for each other, and understand that we've all had this very rattled, challenging and challenged life in different ways. And that these new systems that are coming in are what we've been looking for, but we're not experienced in them. No one's experienced in them. no one can stand up and say, I've got this, I'm an authority. And anyone who does that will find themselves in some pain rather soon afterwards. That's what I can see. This really is a year for humility, not putting yourself down. Humility is actually includes the ability to speak up when something needs to be said, the courage to be not so much in, oh, should I say this? Do I have permission to say this? Is it all right to say this? That's just one kind of what we can call ego. That's not humble at all. The humble person sees, like, in the deeper truth of what I see, there is something important that needs to be brought into this conversation, or into this plan, or into this business, or into this project, or into this family, and goes about bringing it in. So all those things where it says, oh, I'm not worthy, I don't deserve, I shouldn't be a part of this, they don't belong in this energy, because you are then removing wholeness from the system. And don't wait for other people. This is not about the dominant people giving you space. It's about the people who have not been dominant, who genuinely have something to contribute. You know inside yourself that there is something important that you have to contribute. It is about you standing up. Please do not wait for the dominant people or the dominant organizations to rescue you, or to step aside for you, or to give you space. They won't. It is your job, it is my job to step forward in humility, calmly, with our values fully engaged, to represent the future of humanity and the future of our life on this planet, which is a part of the universe, to stand in the values of that future and bring them forward, bring forward the ways of doing things that are aligned with our essence and with life. It takes courage, and you cannot have that kind of courage if you're caught up in all the stories of your head. That's why it needs humility. When you're humble, maybe I could say neutrality would be a better word. Humble has so many old-fashioned kind of putting yourself down and being meek and mild that it often makes people behave the opposite of humble and actually just constantly be in their own head thinking about themselves. So let's say from a very neutral place, a neutral energy, bring forward what's important, what's valuable, what's essential for life. Bring it forward with courage, a quiet kind of inner courage, the true courage of the heart that does not allow things to be done in a way that will be regretted later. It stands for what's important, for what's deeply valuable, and it steps forward and takes space and changes the flow of what's happening at the moment. That's the courage that's needed. It's a courage to change the flow. It's the courage to stop the running of certain conversations or work in progress, to interrupt sometimes as gracefully as we can and say, hey, we need to pay attention to this. This is important. So feel into that courage, which is quiet, which is not selfish, which does not look at, is it okay for me to say this? It looks at, this must be said, this must be contributed, this must be done. Because this is for life, this is for our future. This is essential. And as a result, what will emerge is a kind of collaboration that we haven't experienced before. We've talked a lot about collaboration. A lot of work has been done on collaboration. But as always, whatever work you've already done, we are always stepping into new energy. And the way of collaborating this year will be the way that brings that wholeness. So sometimes groups that are very good at collaborating are not particularly good at finding that wholeness, because they often exclude people who are not very good at collaborating. This is different. We need to bring all of it together. Many of the people who are not good at collaborating still have very special energy and skills and gifts that need to be brought into what we're doing. So this is not a we're in the space and you're out of the space collaboration. It's we are all in a universe where every part is intertwined with every other part. And we work with some of those parts, not all of them. We affect all of them, but we work with some of them. And as we work with some of them, there are going to be many uncomfortable situations because we're having to work out how to do that in a way that we have never done it before. And so our old business habits, our old family habits, our old community habits, and our old group habits, and our old individual habits are going to feel rather clumsy and awkward because they're out of place. You know, when you go into a group of people who have a very smooth way of operating with each other and you feel like, oh, I don't quite know how to do this. I don't know how to perform in the way that they want me to perform. I'm too this, or I'm too noisy, or I'm too something. It might feel rather like that, because we're going to be very much on our leading edge in terms of how do we collaborate with each other. And usually in those situations, a lot of what we experience is clumsiness, awkward, clumsy, oh, I didn't get that right. But being able to see and feel that is really valuable, because by the end of the year, it'll feel a lot smoother. And that also is something that gets baked into this foundation that is being grown through this really rather beautiful energy, where the challenges that arise in it are mostly challenges of our habits. They're the challenges to our habits. The challenges are not so much in the energy of the year, but they're the challenges to our habits. I feel that those are the most important messages that I would like to share and that are coming through as we tune into this energy. And so what I'd like to do is open it up now to anybody who feels that there's something that you have received or you're accessing or you're tuning into that feels important for all of us. It's not just a personal thing. This isn't the place for personal stories. There are other places for that. So this is something that's collectively valuable, and that is additional to what I said. So this is not the time for saying, oh, I really agree with everything you said, Sarah, whether you do or you don't. This is a time for additional value only. Okay, so reflect on that. I don't want to put some very difficult barrier for anybody to open their mouth, but we don't have very long. So I invite you to be very conscious in the contribution that you make, very reflective. And then if you have something you'd like to say, raise your hand and keep it brief so that we can bring more people in. You're also welcome to write something in the chat if you like. And let's see, in a little more collaborative space, what's coming through. Okay, let's start with Andrew and Megan.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. I just wanted to quickly say, and something that I've said to Megan, is that the energy of the land at the moment seems way in front of the people. It seems a lot more advanced than where the people are at.
Yes, that's a beautiful way of putting it. No wonder I was experiencing those, because, you know, I don't plan what I'm going to say here, all that stuff about the soil and things. It was so much reflecting that. And I don't think that's just because of the business. It's actually really exactly what you're saying. Mm. And how do you respond to that, Andrew? How do you work with that, both of you, when you see that?
It's almost as if the land will take whatever you've got to give, and you need to be a little bit mindful of making sure there's enough left for yourself.
Interesting. So do you feel the land is moving ahead in a way? It's like it's going to do its thing anyway, whether we catch up with it or not?
Exactly right. And shifting our minds to out of our generation, so that there's so much impatience in thinking you need to change it in your lifetime, whereas all you got to do is get the ball rolling and then watch it'll happen after you're gone.
Come back for the next round.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew. Dan.
Yeah, I've experienced things. This goes back 50 years, and even past that in high school, when I had conversations with my best friend,
Dan, can I'm going to be rather strict here. Can I invite you, please, really just to talk about this energy, not about the past?
Okay.
That's precisely, the point of this year. We need to be in this energy now.
Okay, yeah, well, I'm feeling stronger and stronger in this energy in terms of what I'm doing and what's happening in my life, with my book, with connections with film, and to bring out the vision experience I had in '73, which was a real head scratcher. But now it looks like everything is coming to fruition because of the journey I've been on. And I have no answer. I don't know why. It is like entering the unknown, but I always felt something askance, not really right for decades. There's something here. And I've been working on this, and now it's sort of like I'm shaking. I'm very emotional. I'm crying. It's like drawing the curtain back and just and wanting to reveal things, but patience and timing of all this, because I could talk about a lot of things that I see about climate change and all that, but developing the foundation, taking care of the soil, which is my book, the films, and all this stuff, and just be very low profile and being very, very silent and low. Like I say, just do it and work on it, and just.
It's a very challenging energy.
Yeah.
When you feel like everything you've been doing is beginning to come to fruition, it's really easy to get excited at that point. And this is not the time to be excited, as I think has been very clear in what's coming through for all of us. And that's what you're expressing. Yeah, thank you.
That's a real challenge, yes.
Yeah, it's a real challenge. Sienna. Just unmute yourself, Sienna.
I'm unmuted, thank you. So I'm loving the words that you're putting to everything, because I've been feeling that. 2 sentences. I'm coming out of like 5 years of such despair, cancer diagnosis, money loss, everything. So last year was working really hard to bring everything in. And in December, one place where I wanted to teach, the man said, I said, okay, we need to talk about money. He said, whatever you want. So, I mean, that was like completely different that I've been dealing with. And then last week I said, I need money to show up that has nothing to do with anything I'm doing. And I opened something yesterday, and there was some kind of card of some kind of tax credit for people that I don't even fit into the category. And so here it is. So this is fabulous. Thank you.
It's moving. Yeah, thank you. Elaine.
Oh boy, thank you. I'm so glad it's recorded so I can transcribe it.
We'll transcribe it. That's a very good idea, Elaine. Thank you.
Will
transcribe it and share.
Fabulous. Yeah. Thank you, because it takes hours and I'm willing to do the work because this is I've used the word rich life for years, but I say rich and juicy. I have this phrase rich and juicy that just feels yummy. And I'm so struck by what you're talking about with building the soil and creating. For a year and a half almost ago, I bought a new home with a 1/4 acre that had been seriously degraded and neglected. And my inspiration and my commitment here was to transform this land using regenerative agriculture and permaculture, so it's a thriving, vibrant place. And it is such a journey for me too, as you can imagine. I mean, I've been building my foundation about operating differently, not doing it the pusher, driver. Well, you just, all the kinds of things you're talking about. And I've just recently gotten all the grass sod taken out because it was dead and dead dirt. And now I'm at the place of, okay, building, how do I build new soil here in a physical way? And it's such a stretch for me because I've never gardened. I'm almost 80 years old and I've never gardened, never wanted to garden, but this has life to it and it feels different, and yet it doesn't. So your words today have just been like, oh yeah, okay, that's the foundational piece I need to have, not just on the external, but on the inner level of how to relate to this. It's a different kind of relationship and it's a different kind of inner infrastructure, I guess. I'm fishing for words here.
That's right.
It's
right.
just weird.
It's weird. You know what I'm tempted to do, because we've got lots of people on this call, which is really great. What I'd like to do is invite anybody who'd like to stay for a bit longer to continue this conversation to do so. Simply because I've got some time. If you've got some time and you find it interesting, let's do it. And if you haven't, that's fine. What I want to say is I'm going to run a webinar next week at exactly the same time, a free webinar, which will be more practical, and we'll talk about, what do we do with this? And I will also talk, not at great length, but I will talk about a course that I run. I'm not going to do a great big sales pitch, but I'm going to blend together. If you feel really called by this energy, or you feel like you don't quite know what to do with it, or you don't know how to navigate in these kinds of times, or you don't know how to do the prosperity piece, then you could come to that webinar and we can explore that in a much more practical way. Okay, so I will send an invitation to everybody after this today. There will be one in our newsletter, which will go out tonight. And so you're welcome to explore that. And in the meantime, because we're already here and we're tapped in, we're just going to continue for a little while. And I'm going to invite Nancy to speak.
Hello, everyone. Sarah, when you took us into the moment of reflection at the beginning, and I've been thinking about the energy of this year, what started happening was there were rays of light just starting to move and vibrate. And as they vibrated out into the cosmos, they started coming together and making something like star shapes or sun ray shapes, where they just came together more and more and more. And it was so magnificent. It was like your words later were almost describing what the feeling that was happening inside. So thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Zora.
Hello.
Hi.
So tapping into this energy of this year, I perceived like how important it is to give up or to letting go our agendas. And I could feel being in the moment and enjoying the moment and listening in the moment and just let go of the future and these agendas, this straight line of time, this linearity to give up. And there I could feel a great possibility in this energy.
Yeah, I feel that's very important what you've said there, Zora. You can feel even in the comments that are being made and probably in everybody's thoughts, how tempting it is to refer back to the past and to refer to think about all the things in our history. And what you're pointing to is it's not about abandoning that. It's about recognizing that by being present and by that listening, that everything that we've wanted is already included. So we don't need to keep retelling the stories of the past. And this is the discipline of the year. This is the thing that's not easy to do. It's easy to listen to this message and feel like, oh yeah, I can do that. That's what I've always been waiting for. And at the same time, that's exactly where we fall down, because we have tram lines that straight line that you said. We have tram lines in our minds that say, oh yeah, I've been waiting for this, now I'm going to do this. But actually what you're going to do this year, going in that direction, but it's going to be different as well. When you have that presence, it comes out different. You do it different. And that's where the real beauty is, isn't it? Yeah. Thank you, Zora.
Thank you.
All right. Let me just... Okay, I'm going to jump around a little bit. Let's go to Nick. And I'm going to remind you again to please make sure that what you're saying is additional to what I said. And it's not really about your personal journey. It's something that is for the whole group. There's a discipline in doing this. The reason I'm doing it is this is part of the energy of this year. It's part of letting go of the personal agenda, that kind of very driven way of thinking that Zora was just talking about, and really tuning into what's valuable for this group of people. What if I say this now, is this going to add to the value of life this year? Or if I say it, am I going to get a bit of airtime, or am I going to verify myself and my own life journey? Let's let go of being insecure about our life journey. We've all been bruised. And let's actually step into where we are now, looking towards a future, and therefore shaping and influencing a future that works better for all of us. Okay, Nick.
Yeah, no pressure. Just seeing that there's a lot of support that's already there, and accepting that support is a discipline. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. That's very important. I reflected yesterday evening that things get offered to us. And sometimes we can say, I'm interested in that, or I'm not interested in that. And I'm gradually learning to realize that if something is put in front of me, there's always a reason. It's always life speaking to me. It's not just this person saying, hey, Sarah, I want your attention. Life is always doing something through all the people who are around me. And it's sometimes easy to be dismissive of that. And therefore we lose the support. That is exactly what we were looking for, or what we need. So that's another kind of listening. Thank you, Nick. Let's go to Annalise.
Well, it's challenging because I was trying to today find a way to focus, and I could not focus. What came to me really was that everything went different than I thought that would be. I just had to be present. And I'm not saying that just on behalf of myself, but I was in a group just before we arrived here. And then someone said, okay, I'm so happy that I have been in a place now that I can give my work without being there, so people can work with what I have been designing. And another person said, oh, I'm not sure in what place I am, but I'm definitely in a kind of soil where I'm waiting for what wants to emerge from there, what will flourish. And then my partner came and he said, I could not fix you today because I wanted to know what we are going to work on. He said, no, we can't. Oneness, he said, oneness. We're now in oneness. And that came up through your words as very alive, underlining, silver lining, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Sky.
I had an experience last week, and it feels like this energy of what you're talking about. So I had a problem come up with a government entity. Anyway, it felt like there wasn't many solutions. And when I sort of sat back and thought about, well, how do I ask for a beautiful request here, or how do I create change? I thought about the person that had made these decisions, and then I just felt straight away that, oh my gosh, when I put all my energy into that organization or that person, it just felt so low. I thought, oh, that's not even where I want to be dealing with. And I had this sense that there was something, like I was just, my energy was drawn to a much higher space, like a higher realm. And I thought, oh, like it just, like the fluidity of that place and the productivity and the way to connect. And I thought, oh, and then I felt back into, you know, what that person was, and I just, I can't keep doing that same thing. And I'm shaking a bit because it was such a big shift, and it's opened so much for me this last week to not put our focus into, you know, that one problem or that person or those things. That we have this ability to move beyond, and we have infinite resources, and it's a much beautiful,
it's much smoother, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly what you're saying. So much smoother. That's what it felt like. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Nice example. Let's go to Rachel.
Hi, hello.
Hi.
Yeah, earlier when you took us into the energy of this year, I felt my whole body just felt, there's just like a real joyful feeling. And I think the embodiment of the kind of energies feels really important this year.
Yes.
Over Christmas and over the last few weeks, I've definitely felt that energy suddenly become gentler, and
Yes.
almost a clearance as well emotionally with stuff. And then within my kind of spiritual practice each day, where I, you know, call in and be with the kind of energies, lovely energies. I called in the energy of money, and I think I'll call in this new energy as well. And read your book and started working with that. And there's a real smoothness and a gentleness. And I felt like I was starting the year like waiting. It wasn't right to just go with the 1st of January because the year wasn't starting by going by that calendar and going by more like the moon. And now that the year's started, the gentleness was there, the smoothness was there, almost a sacredness was there. And then this last few days, it's all the old, it's like the old way is trying to come in again. And I felt myself get really frustrated, really impatient. So hearing all of this about, oh, I still need to prepare the soil and the foundation, there's something really rich in that, and exploring that. So thank you.
Thank you. Catherine?
Hi. I wanted to share, when you led us at the beginning into these stages, I felt so much grace, like really amazing grace, or almost like majesty, but without the ego. It's this natural blooming of everybody being in the state of grace that will allow everything to happen. So it felt to me.
Beautiful. In what you're saying, it shows us how much becomes possible, especially when we can a little bit let go of taking everything so personally. Yeah. Somebody here, I don't know what your name is. It says M West. A little bit elusive there. Are you there? Okay, let's go to Melanie.
Hi, thank you, Sarah. I just wanted to share that at the beginning, when you were guiding us, what I saw was, as the energy of the year, this incredibly beautiful being just waiting for us to say yes. And it's this incredibly subtle energy that is so easy to miss, and it's true power. And in this case, what I'm receiving from before, but also now, is that power and that love are absolutely two sides of the same coin, and one feeds the other. But the power that has been used before is so forceful that if we're not vigilant and present, we're going to miss the true power that's going to be kind of pushed away by the wave that comes from the past. So it's really our job to kind of protect in that bubble of love, because that power is stronger. It's just so much more subtle than what we're used to. So we have to just know that it's like the wind. It's there, even if you don't see it, you can just feel it. So just connect to the power in that sense. And that power is love. Like if you look for one, you find the other. They're not separate in any possible way. And that's kind of what showers everything else.
Thank you. That's very beautiful. Yeah, thank you. And is it Shah? Are you there? Okay, these people, I can't see the faces, so.
I'm not
All
sure
right,
if you mean me. Do you mean me?
I do, yes, I can't see faces. I
Charmaine,
can't see
sorry.
your face. So,
Yeah, I'm sorry about this, and I'm sorry about my camera. I'm in a dark space, and it's just not a good look. What's really standing out for me this year with the energy is, you know, this thing. Yes, we can achieve anything really quickly, but you know, we've got a new moon on the 21st of January, which is in Aquarius, which is a fabulous opportunity for just setting our intentions for everything that is future, humanitarian, just such a fabulous energy. And I'm reminded that whilst it's very easy when we're faced with a problem like climate change, or you know, trying to change from going traditional farming to organic, for example, that it's so easy to have this inclination to just chuck all the old out and start with the new. And there's this transition that has to happen, that if we aren't careful, we can sometimes do a bit more damage, because we rush into things thinking that all the old ways are not helpful. And that we, you know, you use the example of heart problems, you know, even in Western medicine, it has its place. You know, it's there to save lives. It's not there to prolong life, but it's there to save a life. So there's always this balance of, you know, what do I need to do that will help me in this moment? And if it is something perhaps from the old way, or if it is Western medicine, if it's something that in that moment is powerful and can help, then there's a strength and a wisdom in recognizing that and knowing when to then safely transition to, well, you know, I've left the ER, for example, I've left the emergency room, they've saved my life. Right now I'm going to change how I live my life, and, you know, eat differently, live differently, and create my soil, look after my own soil in a way that is going to help me transition into a stronger place. So I'm just reminded that if we try to change too quickly, sometimes we can weaken ourselves, and perhaps just, you know, it's a bit of a disadvantage. So there's this thing of wanting to change, and I'm always reminded of people who grow trees for a living. You know, they never grow a tree to see it fulfilled its full potential in their lifetime. You know, they're planting trees for generations ahead, and that must be such an amazing experience, because you're just nurturing it for a moment in time and just hoping that it's going to keep going and reward something in the future. So thank you. I've enjoyed this session.
So you know, the key in this is to really hear the message of the year about this listening, and the becoming more tuned in to things, because even in the situation, an emergency situation, or let's not take a complete emergency, by that time it's just whatever happens really, but in many situations, if we can start listening now more deeply, like Sky was talking about, then it changes the dynamic of that. The energy of this year is not really, okay, I'll just do it the same way now and then change. The change happens even if we're using old, I mean, there's no such thing as old and new. That just doesn't make sense. Everything's emerging, but our orientation can be very different. And we can genuinely find that non-manipulative, non-forceful approach. And we always get better results when we do that, always. So the invitation is to get in there before the emergency and to actually really listen to this energy, tune into this energy, because it will actually work better. That's the point. So
that's true. I would just say that there are some of us, including me, who are currently harvesting things that were set in motion a number of years ago, and they take time to work through. So yes,
everybody, that's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about here. We've all been working for many years on the things that are beginning to come through. And it's how do we ensure the fullness of that? It's a really interesting, very special opportunity, I would say, for us as human beings this year. So thank you for joining this session. If you're interested to further the conversation and really to explore how do we make this practical, how do we actually get better at doing these things, how do we grow the skills to be able to navigate these kinds of energies, that's what we're going to talk about next week. And I will say thank you very much and goodbye.